The 10th Amendment was added to the Constitution in 1787, largely because of intellectual influence and personal persistence of the Anti-Federalists and their allies.
When they drafted this, it's almost the inverse. They were more concerned. You got to realize those were the early colonies, the early states. Mm-hmm. They were more concerned about the powers of the states that they belonged in, and made sure that when they drafted this Constitution, that the state is reserving the powers except for this Constitution that gives the power to the federal government. Anyway, that's my opinion. You know, most people think, oh, we drafted this federal government and then they gave the powers to the state. My opinion is that the states drafted this from their various representatives and then gave the power up through the Constitution to a federal government for all of the states. Monroe was saying that that was too limiting, and for the government to be able to handle every minutia of government based on this language. Mm-hmm. So he thought, you know, it needed to have broader interpretation. I believe the federal government oversteps the 10th Amendment. And the way they do it is through the Supreme Court. That's the reason why when you've got Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, and liberals, when you've got a seat open on the Supreme Court, that Supreme Court interprets everything from Roe versus Wade's to Second Amendment, First Amendment. I mean, everything is in the hands of the United States Supreme Court. So if you've got constructionists who want to interpret and broaden the powers of the government, they can do that. They also use certain acts like the Commerce Clause. The Commerce Clause can be used to regulate like the legality of marijuana.
Well, I'm a family physician and an addictionologist. Marijuana is addicting if it's used improperly, but used medically, and there are very valid medical reasons to utilize extracts or products from marijuana in medical procedures, is a very valid medical use under the direction of a doctor. And it's actually less dangerous than some narcotics that doctors prescribe all over this country. And also, this is a states' power issue, because many states across the country, in fact, my own state of Georgia, is considering allowing the medical use under the direction of a physician. So this is a states' rights, 10th Amendment issue. We need to reserve the states' powers under the Constitution. Please support this amendment.
It's back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
I've been motivated.
Act of Congress to regulate interstate commerce, which means Iowa and Nebraska, as people are going across that interstate, you can't change the laws. In other words, you have to lighten the load of your truck when it comes through Nebraska, or you can only have certain, so using this, when the states interact, you can use congressional acts, and then you kind of control states and their individual rights through those acts. And that's enforced through the federal government. Now here's an interesting, just a little side note. Speed limits. Speed limits should be a state, right? Mm-hmm. If Iowa wants to be 55 and Nebraska wants to be 65 and Wyoming wants to be 75, or seat belts, or I think some other things that they try to regulate. But they do that with federal funding. There's highway money to build roads. The federal government provides money to the states, and what will happen is they say, okay, your maximum speed limit on highways will be 60. Your maximum speed limit on interstates will be 75. Your drinking age shall be 21. Years ago when I was in college, the legal drinking age in Iowa was 18 and the legal drinking age in Nebraska was 19. And the federal government came in and said, the drinking age is going to be 21. And the state could say, well, states' rights, we're going to leave it at 18 and 19. Well, we're going to withhold certain federal funding until you make it that way. So until you regulate these speed limits, and you regulate the drinking age, you don't get any federal money. So that's another way to control state action. So you've got money, federal money, you've got congressional acts, and then you've got the Supreme Court.
I used to say, there are these two structural protections in the Constitution that are as important as any other feature of it. And that one is vertical, and we call that federalism. The other is horizontal, and we call that separation of powers. When you put those together, they prevent any one person or one group of people from getting too much power and abusing those who are subject to the government.
Yeah, and so
The 10th
maybe
Amendment is important to us because it gives the U.S. citizens more say in the government.